Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, and we've got three major bombshells coming out of Russian President Vladimir Putin's speech today. Bombshells that right now, as we speak, are redefining the world political order like never before. You are not going to want to miss this. On Tuesday, February 21st, Russian President Vladimir Putin delivered an official State of the Nation address to the Federal Assembly in the nation's capital, using the occasion to mark the near one-year anniversary of Russia's special military operation Ukraine. The build-up to the momentous speech has been immense, and Putin did not disappoint. The speech lasted nearly 2 hours, and here are three major bombshells that President Putin dropped for all the world to hear. Number 3, Russia is suspending the START Treaty. Technically referred to as the New START Treaty, it was signed in Prague in 2010 and caps the number of strategic nuclear warheads that the United States and Russia can deploy at any one time. Russia has the world's largest stockpile of nuclear weapons, and the New START Treaty allows for a number of yearly inspections to verify compliance with the set limitations on deployment. However, as of today, Russia has now formally withdrawn from participating in that treaty. They're suspending Western inspections in retaliation for NATO's participation in the Ukrainian conflict. Putin made it absolutely clear that as long as NATO is actively engaged in military hostilities towards the Russian Federation, any and all cooperation on the nuclear front is now officially suspended. Number 2, it was Western and corrupt Ukrainian powers that started this.
Seeing that the Kyiv regime threw everything, tanks, airplanes, to strike Donbass, not just Donbass, not just Donetsk, but other towns. In 2015, they made another attempt of a direct attack on Donbass, while continuing to blockade it and continuing their campaign of terror. It was quite contrary to the UN Security Council resolutions. Quite contrary, but everyone was pretending that nothing was happening. I want to repeat, it were them who are guilty, who are culpable for the war, and we are using force to stop it.
So there you have President Putin reiterating what a number of Western scholars and geopolitical analysts warned about for years. We're talking John Mearsheimer of the University of Chicago, George Kennan of Harvard, even Henry Kissinger. They collectively recognize that brazen NATO eastward expansion that was denounced and opposed by every single head of Russia, from Gorbachev to Yeltsin to Putin to Medvedev back to Yeltsin, every single Russian leader told NATO, do not do that. Do not expand eastward. We consider NATO weapons and troops at our border an existential threat. You have been warned, and our Western leaders turned a deaf ear to those warnings for the last 2 decades. And now we know, thanks to a transcript of a telephone conversation between then Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland, who's still around, and the U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Jeffrey Pyatt, published by the BBC, that the U.S. State Department was behind the 2014 color revolution that overthrew the duly elected pro-Russian government in Kiev and installed instead a pro-Western puppet government. And NATO forces then in turn began to arm and train Ukrainian forces to take back the breakaway republics of Donetsk and Lugansk in the eastern Donbass region, which Russia saw as effectively creating Ukraine into a de facto member of NATO. And Putin personally promised NATO would never be allowed to do that. And so here we are. Hey gang, we got big news. Our merch store is getting a huge makeover. We got brand new designs coming into the Turley Talks merch store in the next month, and that means we need to make room. So if you want cool designs like this t-shirt, you've got to act fast. All the top designs featured on the store.turleytalks.com site are limited quantity and won't be available for long. So make sure you click on that link below right now and grab one of these incredible designs for yourself and a fellow patriot and stand boldly for truth. Don't miss out on owning one of these amazing designs before they disappear forever. Click on that link below or go to store.turleytalks.com. And the number one bombshell of the speech, the West has gone absolutely woke.
It cannot ignore the fact that Russia cannot be defeated on the battlefield. So they're waging increasingly aggressive information attacks. First of all, targeting the young generations, lying on every step, distorting historical truth, attacking our culture, the Russian Orthodox Church, and other traditional religious institutions in our country. Now look at what they're doing with their own peoples. They're destroying the institution of family, their cultural and historical identity, and various perversions with regard to children up to pedophilia are accepted as the new norm, and priests are forced to recognize and officiate same-sex weddings. People can live however they want, and we in Russia have never intruded into people's private life, and we're not going to do that. But what we want to say is maybe they should take a look in the scripture, into the holy book of any great religion. It says that the family is a union between woman and man. And these holy texts are now being increasingly doubted in the West. The Anglican Church is now considering the idea of a gender-neutral God. What can we say? God forgive them. They don't know what they're doing.
Wow. Wow. God forgive them. They know not what they do. Now, this portion of the speech is precisely what Jordan Peterson has been talking about of late for some time. He recognizes that Putin's successful weaponization of anti-woke sentiment among the Russian population, and I would add the vast majority of the non-Western world that sees the woke West, is absolutely insane. That weaponization is a civilizational weaponization. It's not so much a political weaponization or an ideological weaponization per se. The war against the woke West is for Putin a thoroughly civilizational war. It's a clash between two mutually exclusive civilizations, one that promises to be a brave new progressive world guided by woke absurdity and insanity versus a 1,000-year-old Russian civilization guided by the bedrock of religion and tradition. Now, you could think that that's all bunk, but that is precisely what Putin has been arguing in his speeches from at least 2012, when scholars noted that his speeches took a very noticeable, stark civilizational turn, that Russia was in a great civilizational struggle with a decadent and decaying West. And the Ukrainian war is now ground zero of that civilizational struggle. So it's all interrelated. In other words, Putin is saying, if you don't believe that the West has become incessantly decadent and cruel, look at what they do to their own children. So when all is said and done, Putin's speech really was nothing less than an official declaration of independence from the Western-led liberal international order. That order is now dead, as more and more scholars are coming to that very conclusion. The rise of civilizational states like Russia, China, and India have brought that unipolar era to an end. A new multipolar civilizational world is rising, and President Putin has made it absolutely clear there is nothing that Western and NATO powers can do to stop it. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You'll definitely want to check out my latest video on Marjorie Taylor Greene calling for a national divorce. You're not going to want to miss it, so make sure to click on that link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.